decent people. And the great question is, if you were to cut a dividing line down through the middle of humanity, when I say through the middle, or make a very clear dividing line, who are the good people and who are the evil people? It would loosely, very loosely, package people either as empaths who care for people, or sociopaths and psychopaths who do not care about people. Very loosely, that's how it's done. You've seen these charts before, Jesse. So that's the big question. How many of us could be classed in that decent category? Because it's actually largely because of the ignorance of those people that the wicked have been able to advance, because they are ruthless, they are ambitious, they are without principles, and unfortunately, because they've replaced greed and power and all that, they go after those things instead of love. Love just doesn't really exist as a. It's like, kumbaya, my lord, picking daisies, very nice, but where's the moolah? The only way they can get the moolah is by destroying people, and that puts them on the wrong side of the fence. Aha, one of my favorite subjects, Jesse, that evil doesn't exist, Kiwi's very, very prolific there, isn't he? With his, there would be. I mean, we won't go into it now, Kiwi. No offense. I'm not reading everything I'm seeing down here, but any authority figure who presumes. It's one thing as a parent. I've examined this myself with my own children. It's one thing as a parent carrying out your duty as a guardian of these young souls that are growing up under the umbrella of the roof of your house or whatever, you know what I mean? They're growing up under your care. There's a certain amount of control needs to be exerted in order to keep them safe. And but as soon as they're capable of doing it themselves, the good parent steps back. And when I say capable, I mean they have to display the wisdom, not just the common sense, but the wisdom that they know how to. Then you step back and you give them more freedom all the time, because the whole point is to allow them to make their own moral choices and decisions based on the things you've introduced them to, But is there evil in the world? Obviously there is. This is just a slide. Poverty, war, destruction, injustice, death. Of course there's evil in the world. This was a little slide I did talking about I think it was the 666 phenomenon, Jesse. It's just one of them. And I categorize human evil into three basic categories. There's initiative evil, which is conscious, personal, knowing, active, deliberate, pre-planned evil for profit or reward, and or for perverse personal satisfaction. So there we got little face of Satan up there. So that's the person who initiates the evil action. And again, often these are the CEOs of international corporations. Often, okay? Although they wouldn't call it evil. It's just business, it's business. Sorry, buddy, don't take it personally. It's just business. I'm cleaning you out, Sorry about your flock of children and, friends and everything. And you're all going to be kicked out now. But, hey, Then the second type is facilitative evil. And this is with a limited amount of awareness. You see the little dollar signs in his face there, By circumstance, association, obligation, compulsion, occupation, training, or duty, also for personal reward. So a lot of us would fit into this second category, I'm just doing my job. Yeah, I know that the boss is an absolute swine, and he's an evil, wicked, money-grasping, greedy so-and-so who's exploiting people and not paying us fair wages, and whoever it might be, the head of a big organization, maybe like Amazon or Microsoft, whoever it might be, that are ruthlessly deploying inhumane tactics in order to gain more power and more wealth, okay? But they can only do so with an army of compliant soldiers and workers and truck drivers and everything working for them. So in this sense, a lot of us fall into that second category. I'm not saying there's an easy way out of this, but it starts by us recognizing it. And it's from that concept that we can then make plans that lead to actions down the line that will benefit our children ultimately, for having a better word. Number three, unwitting. Again, a huge bracket here. By circumstance, association, fear, obligation, compulsion, conditioning, or ignorance, with or without personal reward. So in bracket number 2, the facilitative ones are usually getting paid to do what they do. Some of us, though, are stupid enough to be getting misled by the people who initiate evil. Often it's government leaders and so on, all the soldiers going off to war. And often we're voting for these people or supporting them by not calling them out. Everybody, I could argue that everybody has gone into a courthouse and dealt with some of the rascal judges that I dealt with, who are clear criminals. They were in these second 2 brackets, facilitative or unwitting, But it was a gross insult to someone like me who had suffered at the hands of these people, had demonstrated that they were wicked, and somebody who's supposedly a friend or a colleague of mine in the pro-justice movement just comes up, "Oh, excuse me, Stephen, step aside, I'm going to have my go now." Why? Are you stupid? We've already proven that these people aren't to be trusted. Oh, well, I'll see, I'll give it a go and I'll see where. And then, of course, oh dear, look what he did and look what they've done. 5, 10, 15 years later, you're still at it. Yeah. We've got to wake up and realize the system has to change. So that's a sort of a neat way of understanding how we do. Can you read the last bit at the bottom there, Jesse, please? Because the slide thing is over.
It's a little small for me to read on my screen.
Okay. Evil is always,
integral. Sorry. So, yeah, it's a little bit, a little bit small, but
I wonder if I can make it large here. No, I can't, sadly. No.
I wanted to ask, though, do you think that evil is necessary? Some people think that you can't know good unless you have bad. So I think that that's a great lie, that they've perpetrated on humanity. But that's what some people think, that you can't know goodness without this horrific side of life.
Very timely, Jesse. It might be the next slide or the one after it. So we'll just do it with the pictures come up. Very simply here, 3 necessities for evil, right, is the urge to dominate, which is sociopathic behavior, the means to dominate, which are these structures and systems, okay, and there are material rewards for that domination. So so that's what I'm suggesting. There's 3 necessities for human evil, okay? You need to have an urge to dominate, and you have to have the means to do it through these structures, and there has to be some reward for doing so, okay? And this is what I'm saying, inhumane values on the left-hand side. If the concept is amoral, you're going to have an evil outcome. It's very simple, right? Autocratic systems, hierarchies is what I'm talking about here. So over on the right, 3 necessities for good, okay? The urge to nurture, which is the same as empathetic behavior. The individual decision to nurture. In other words, you don't need a structure. You can just go and start being good, right? And finally, the nurturing act is its own reward. So you go out and you just do good stuff. You be nice to people. Why? Because it's nice to be nice, so to speak. But you don't need an organization to do good. You do, other than immediate acts of violence and wickedness. Over here, though, in order to dominate, you need to have the structures in place. Even if it's only structures by default. In other words, a passive government that doesn't take action when it's needed in the face of, let's say, domestic violence or something like that.
Well, that's fascinating. Can you go back?
Sure.
Can you go back to that one for 1 sec? But what's fascinating on that is the fact that, these structures that are in place that allow this evil to happen, that's the construct, that's the matrix, that's the structure of evil. When we're talking what is evil, it's the structures that have been put in place to keep us bound to its hegemony, I guess, or into its structure, right? So that's interesting. I really learned something there.
Well, I'd hold that there actually just for a second, Jesse, because again, what you have to keep doing is comparing everything against the original model of perfection. You remember that slide we did earlier? Perfection at the top, beliefs at the bottom, then you had reality and symbolism. So it's something you have to imagine at this point, because we've got no recorded, documented history of it other than the mythological Garden of Eden story. That's the only example we have of what utopia was like, living with the divine in whatever form we were meant to be. And there's all sorts of speculations about what that would have meant, but certainly, it would have been many times more, better than the way we are at the moment. But the structures, you see, human evil, as I covered in the 666 interview, humans are the only entities capable of, manufacturing or facilitating evil. Now, even if you believe in a Satan figure who is somehow cooking up his broth of evil and pouring it out on humanity, it has to work through human agency in exactly the same way that the messianic impulse, the messianic mission, has to rely on human agents, including Jesus, of course. And we're not getting into an argument about how divine he was or wasn't. They argued about that for centuries. Millions of people got sacrificed, at least hundreds of thousands got sacrificed for falling on the wrong side of those arguments. But God obviously can't just, with a sweep of his hand, put everything right, or because if he did so, it would be contradiction of his own original pure nature. So what has to happen is that humans have to create the space for goodness to operate. And as you said, Jesse, the structures, now it's very interesting because none of these structures existed, as far as we know, there's no mention of them anyway, in the Garden of Eden. They are constructs that are a byproduct of, number one, separation from the divine. So what have we done? We've created all these false gods, right? Secondly, ignorance, because we don't know and don't understand that we are a unique sovereign beings, children of light, associated with the divine. We don't really get it. Cognitive dissonance, all these other things we're talking about, we don't quite get it. And so we look to others, authorities, to lead us, to guide us, to shepherd us, to direct us, to dictate to us. And if the world keeps going the way it's going now, it's going to be absolute and totalitarian, centralized government, centralized currency, one world army, everybody linked into this internet by chips or, and everything, and everybody being capable of being controlled by people who literally think of themselves as gods. They believe because they've got so much money and power, and they mix in these circles, they go at the Gates, the Bill Gates, George Soros, Klaus Schwab, Fauci, all of these people, and a lot of senior politicians as well, and the dark ones we don't see, the Vanguard, the BlackRock, and all these people, they're all in there. They believe they have the right because they've got clearly, they're far more, there's some sort of superior species to the rest of us because we're all useless eaters. Useless eaters. We're just like automations that eat, poop, sleep, reproduce far too much, by the way, so let's inject them a few times and encourage abortion and all the rest of it, because we only need about 500,000 of these stooges to actually run operations for us. We'll get a load of robots in and everything, and we'll just cleanse it. And this is the problem. We once you realize, sorry, Jesse, if you were, if for example Jesus were to walk amongst us again today, and we knew it was him, who in their right mind would even contemplate trying to hurt him, let alone crucify him? It just wouldn't happen because, the life of this man, Jesus, was so precious. How, you wouldn't even contemplate. But we're doing it with babies, innocent babies, in their thousands. And do you remember, we'll come to that in a moment, actually, I'll point that out. The amount of abortions in Ireland in the first year of abortions, 6,666. No coincidence. No coincidence. Evil exists, Jesse. But the structures facilitate it. As a matter of fact, this is the story of the rotten apple in the barrel. We thought when we started our Integrity Ireland project 15, 17 years ago, we thought we were dealing with a few rotten apples in the barrel. Only to realize, after many years of painful and frustrating dealings with the system, that actually it's the barrel that's rotten. And even the good apples that you put into it get corrupted. So